Once upon a time, the possibility of a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie flat out flopping seemed totally impossible. And yet, the Marvel's early box office performance damn near guarantees that it's set to be the franchise's first outright bomb. Obviously ignoring those films that were hobbled by the pandemic, such as Black Widow and Eternals, of course. Current projections theorize the $250 million blockbuster could gross less than $300 million worldwide, with some even suggesting a worst-case scenario of failing to top both The Flash and 2008's The Incredible Hulk. It's certainly an alarming outcome for the sequel to a film which grossed $1.13 billion less than 5 years ago, and extremely concerning for the MCU as a whole. Industry analysts and fans alike are already scrambling to try and explain what went wrong. But as ever, there's no one single explanation for why the Marvels is cratering commercially. It's a complicated issue explained by a multitude of reasons. So, with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, and let's discuss why the Marvels flopped. Number 9. Captain Marvel isn't as popular as other MCU heroes. While it is fair to say that nobody cared about many of the MCU's biggest superheroes until a compelling movie about them came out, the Marvels faces an especially steep hill in this regard, given that it has 3 protagonists of dubious at best popularity. Brie Larson's Carol Danvers is obviously the most high-profile of the focal trio, yet she nevertheless remains a highly divisive character among the MCU fandom. Many simply feeling that she's boring and lacks the personality to sell a movie by herself. Though the first Captain Marvel cracked $1.13 billion worldwide, it is also worth remembering that it benefited massively from releasing between Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, effectively serving as a bridge between the two movies and catching the associated tailwind of the hype. Naturally, this sequel has no such luck. As for Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan, well, even accepting that they gained their powers in Disney Plus TV shows, another problem that we'll get into in a moment, neither character has a large fan base, and so general audiences likely met their presence in the trailers with a disinterested shrug. When you've got a movie centered around 3 characters that general audiences just haven't really connected with, it shouldn't be terribly surprising that the box office outcome is so grim. Number 8. You need to do homework before watching it. An increasing problem for the MCU these days is the perception that audiences need to do homework before jumping in. That is, catching up on a bunch of movies, and especially now Disney Plus TV shows, in order to understand what's going on. Even accepting that the Marvels provides an on-ramp for viewers who don't know much of Monica and Kamala, they may nevertheless feel that they're missing out by not watching, say, WandaVision and Ms. Marvel. Rather than commit to spending 10 hours of watching these shows in order to be fully invested in a new movie, it's just so much easier to just not watch any of them full stop. Nobody wants a night out at the movies to feel like something they have to prepare for. While hardcore Marvel fans will always keep abreast of everything that's new, casual moviegoers, who make up the vast majority of any film's box office, have started to see keeping up as a chore, and it certainly doesn't help that the quality has been so wildly inconsistent as of late. Number 7. Superhero movie fatigue is real. There's been much discussion about superhero fatigue in recent years. The suggestion that audiences are simply getting burned out on the abundance of superhero-themed content being released. And while for a time there was a fair argument that the MCU seemed to fend this off, it's a claim that's become much tougher to deny throughout phases 4 and 5. In many ways, Avengers Endgame felt like a proper ending for the original iteration of the MCU, a suitable leaping off point for casual viewers to take their leave. And the fact that the franchise's quality has been so aggressively middling ever since, bar maybe a few exceptions, this has done nothing to help at all, making it easy for audiences en masse to mentally check out of the ongoing storylines. Aside from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's solid box office performance earlier this year, the MCU is struggling both in terms of big screen dollars and streaming metrics, with even a well-received show like Loki Season 2 seeing declining metrics from its first. While it's likely that general audiences will be lured back in decent numbers for Deadpool 3, Avengers the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, especially if, as rumoured, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans and other legacy stars return, that does little to dissuade that overall interest in the franchise has waned. In a year which has seen every single superhero movie except Guardians Volume 3 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse underperform or flop outright, it now seems impossible to deny that paying customers have grown tired of the genre. Number 6, we haven't seen Carol Danvers in almost 5 years. Another big problem with this sequel is Carol Danvers' utter lack of presence in the MCU as of late, given that she hasn't made a major big screen appearance since Avengers Endgame, save for seconds-long cameos in Shang-Chi and Ms. Marvel. That's 4.5 years without one of the most powerful characters in the entire franchise doing anything of significance. Even though the MCU often does wait many years between sequels, this is generally mitigated by the heroes in question appearing in other movies in the interim. If you take Doctor Strange, for example, he waited 6 years for a sequel, yet he was featured prominently in 2 Avengers films and a hugely popular Spider-Man sequel in the meantime. Similarly, the Guardians of the Galaxy had a 6-year wait for Volume 3, but in addition to their Avengers appearances, they also showed up in Thor: Love and Thunder. Yet Carol Danvers has been near radio silent since Endgame, which hasn't helped to challenge the perception that general viewers simply don't identify much with the character. Number 5, lackluster marketing. Above all else, the marketing campaign for the Marvels has been painfully mediocre, no matter how desperately the trailers have tried to spruce things up with a neato remix of the Beastie Boys' Intergalactic. The trailers haven't done a great job of selling the chemistry between the 3 leads, nor the fun of the body-swapping gimmick. Couple this with a generic-looking villain spouting tiresome dialogue, and it's easy to appreciate why the Marvels collapsed at the box office. Plus, the trailers have had an undeniable whiff of desperation to them as of late, regularly referencing the events of Avengers Endgame and breathlessly recapping WandaVision and Ms. Marvel. On top of this, the movie's title is potentially confusing to more casual moviegoers, whereas Captain Marvel 2 would have kept things simple. There's absolutely nothing in the marketing for this movie which screams, "You need to leave the house to see this now." Much as the MCU has successfully leveraged FOMO many times in the past, that's just not the case here. It feels like a minor movie and one that can be left for Disney Plus in 60 or so days. Number 4, the massive budget. 2023 has most certainly been the year of the grossly over-budgeted blockbuster, and even accepting that the pandemic caused budgets to skyrocket across the industry, the Marvel's estimated $250 million price tag is just too damn high. Sure, there's no reality where the sequel to a $175 million hit superhero movie was going to be reining things in, but its undeniably bloated budget ensured it started on the commercial back foot. In theory, a $250 million cost means that the Marvels needs to gross $625 million in order to be truly considered a success, which it hasn't got a hope in hell of doing. In fact, current projections have it potentially failing to hit even half that figure, a disaster by even the most generous assessment. Yet looking at the Marvels, does it look like it cost $250 million? Sure, it's swimming in CGI and has Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson's inevitably large paychecks to settle, but it's hard to look at the movie and consider it premium quality from a technical standpoint. The MCU and Hollywood as a whole desperately needs to get their spending under control because, with the franchise's current downturn, it simply isn't sustainable to be pumping out so many movies costing this much money, especially with returns potentially this meager. Number 3, the SAG After Strike prevented the stars from promoting it. The now thankfully ended SAG After Strike has had an undeniably brutal impact on the marketing of most every blockbuster film released over the past 4 months, given that it has largely prevented stars from promoting their projects at all. And in the case of the Marvels, this is especially unfortunate given that the film's marketing cycle was hugely dependent on having its 3 leads doing a media blitz together to cement their chemistry and endear them to even the most lapsed of MCU fans. Instead, without the stars able to do any press to support the Marvels, it's been forced to rely on the aforementioned underwhelming trailers and little else. In the weeks leading up to the Marvels release, its awareness among audiences was shockingly low. Yet had the strike been resolved even just days earlier, or the movie delayed into 2024, it would have undeniably performed better with the cast hitting the road to sing its praises. Number 2, the short runtime encouraged people to wait for Disney Plus. Roger Ebert once famously said, "No good movie is too long and no bad movie is short enough." And while he's absolutely right, it's tough to deny that runtimes do matter to general audiences. Simply put, in an era where viewers are tougher than ever to persuade to leave their house for a movie, they want to feel that they're getting sufficient bang for their blockbuster buck. Hence why so many tentpole films are now maddeningly close to 3 hours in length. In many respects, the Marvel's 105-minute runtime, making it the shortest MCU movie to date, feels like a breezy blessing. But given that it leaves a movie barely clocking in at 90 minutes, sans credits, many might feel that it just isn't worth the price of a cinema ticket. This, combined with the film not selling itself as one that fans need to see, immediately makes it incredibly easy to wait for the Disney Plus release, presumably in early January time. Number 1, it just wasn't very good. Even if you set aside all these other reasons, there's one simple, unavoidable reality. The Marvels just wasn't very good. Between the mixed critical reviews and middling reaction from fans, it's a film that just never lived up to its potential, and instead faltered under a lackluster plot and wildly underwhelming villain. 15 years into the MCU, and in the wake of a pandemic which made theatrical audiences more choosy than ever, quality is paramount, and mediocrity just won't cut it anymore. Much as many will lament that the Marvel's rejection means for diverse superhero movies, it's tough to look at the end product and consider it worthy of being championed much. It is, in its bones, a committee-produced product nudged along a conveyor belt without the sufficient charm or ingenuity to make it very memorable. The MCU needs to be punching much harder than this, because the days of merely watchable Marvel movies printing money at the box office are long over. And there you go, just a few reasons why the Marvels flopped. But obviously the conversation about the decline in the MCU as a whole is a very topical one at the moment. So let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.